Hi, my name is Andrew Poveda. This is AP Med, and today we're interviewing Emily Loscalzo. She's a rising second year at Case Western Reserve University, and we're going to interview her and ask her more about her food health project and her interest in endocrinology. Emily, could you introduce yourself for us?
So my name's Emily. Like Andrew said, I'm a rising second year at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. I went to undergrad at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm originally from Miami, Florida.
Great. Could you cover more on your background, like who you are as a person, like hobbies, how you first started, childhood, and things like that?
So like I said, I'm from Miami, Florida. I grew up in Hialeah, which is like a very Cuban town. Both my parents are immigrants from Argentina, but the town I grew up in was mainly Cuban centered. So most of the people that I interacted with were Cuban. So I always say that I'm like half Argentine, half Cuban because of that. But I spent my entire life there until I turned 18, and then I went to undergrad at Johns Hopkins and I majored in behavioral biology and the history of science and technology. So originally I wanted to be like a history teacher and like pursue history. And at Hopkins, I started taking classes in just like the history of medicine because there was so much to do with medicine at Hopkins, obviously. And I just got really interested in it, started taking some more classes, started looking into it a bit more, did some shadowing, and just really fell in love with the field and like helping people through medicine. So that's when I added on behavioral biology as well. And in terms of hobbies, I like to basically like work out, I guess. I'm like trying to train for a half marathon. Don't know how well that's going. Right now I'm only up to 6 miles, but that's like what I like to do in like my free time and stuff.
Yeah, I see every med student runs. It's just like,
Yes.
I guess it's a thing. Yeah, okay.
I feel like everyone picks it up either during their gap years or during med school because everyone runs. I did take two, I forgot to mention, I did take two gap years between undergrad and starting med school. I was a medical assistant in Boston during those 2 years.
So, what inspired you to pursue medicine and what made you change your mind? Because you previously said that you wanted to be a teacher. And what was that change in mindset? And yeah, what inspired it during undergrad?
Great question. It's always like a fun question to answer.
Mhm.
So at Hopkins, obviously, like they're one of the biggest centers for medicine. And so really everywhere you look, there's medicine, whether you want to shadow, explore it, or just talk to people about it. And when I did history, I wanted to basically branch out from doing like, I guess like your regular history classes about like European history, US history, anything like that. And I decided to do something out of my comfort zone, which is like history of medicine and just like learning about all the different ways medicine went through different phases from like literally the ancient times until now. And I just like really found it interesting. I really liked the way that it progressed. I liked the way I was just really interested in it. And then I started looking into it by like shadowing. And I really like that that could be a way to help people and advocate for them, which is something that I was passionate about, both advocating and like teaching others. And that's like really at the center of medicine is that you are advocating for your patients, you are helping them in different ways, and you're also teaching them about their diagnoses, you're teaching students that you were to have as a doctor. So yeah, it's basically what changed my mind.
Yeah, I mean, anybody could change at any time, right? There's
Yeah.
no set guidelines. Yeah. Do you want to talk more about, yeah, can you tell us more about your gap years? And I saw that you were in a gap year program and worked as a medical assistant. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, definitely. Those were honestly great years to kind of, I think, figure out what I wanted to do with medicine. I think when I was, like you said, anybody can change their mind at any time. However, changing your mind in undergrad, you've got a lot of learning to do about what med school entails, what exams you need to take, like the MCAT. Like I had no idea, and I also had no one in my family that was a doctor. So I was lucky enough to go to Hopkins, where, again, since everyone is interested in medicine, I had a lot of advisors that could point me in the right direction and a lot of friends that could help me. But I still wanted more clinical experience. That was definitely something that affected me because of COVID. COVID hit my freshman year. And so by the time we got back to campus, there really wasn't a lot of clinical opportunities. And that was still something that I really wanted to do. And so I was a medical assistant in Boston in a suburb called Framingham. And I was a medical assistant at a GI office, which was totally different than what I've was used to, and totally different interests and everything. And it was truly the place where I think I've learned the most those 2 years about just in general GI and medicine, but also the background of medicine, both how you interact with patients, how d different doctors interact with them, but also like the admin side of it as well. The role of insurance plays in medicine, which I wasn't too familiar with previously. But yeah, the administrative role, the role that doctors play in that, and just seeing that all from the medical assistant side, just really opened my eyes and just gave me, I think, a more nuanced view of medicine.
Yeah, I read a piece of yours from, let me see where this is from the Maryland House Health.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
can you talk about more about, because you're talking more about like policies and things like that and the administration, the administrative side of medicine. So could you tell us more about your experience in that and dive more into it?
Yeah, definitely. So that's more of like my advocacy role, also in medicine, which was, like I said before, like one of the things I also that really drew me to medicine was like advocating for people, advocating for the issues that I cared about. In undergrad, I was in a club called Advocates for Reproductive and Sexual Health, and we partnered with Planned Parenthood. And what I wrote there was a testimony against a bill that would basically give electronic records between different states and just basically limit abortion access, or in states where abortions might be illegal, giving them access to those personal patient records. And then if the patient were to go back to that state, basically be able to be tried. So that was like really the first step of mine in the advocacy sphere, was kind of writing that testimony with Planned Parenthood and sending that in. Later on in my two gap years, I wasn't really an advocate in terms of the legislative side, but as a medical assistant, you're still an advocate on a minute scale with the patients. You're advocating on their behalf every day against insurance companies. You're calling in terms of if an insurance company were to deny a claim for them, deny a medication, you're calling the insurance company and seeing why that happened and trying to get them the best care possible. And then now in medical school, I'm part of, so CASE has like these pathways, and the one that I'm a part of is the public health and advocacy pathway. And basically, we do advocate on certain bills. So this past spring, we had a day of advocacy where we went to the Ohio State House in Columbus and basically lobbied on three different bills that were of our own choosing. And we met with different legislators and gave them our opinions on the bills and how we think that, it would affect their constituents. And they were medical related, but we basically met with them. And it was like, that was really my first time going face to face with legislators and having to say something like in the legislative house.
Do you mind telling us about one of the bills?
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you about all three. So one of them was to provide a no cost breakfast and lunch to all students in Ohio. The other one was about expanding free birthing centers around the state of Ohio. Now that a lot of, with different cuts to Medicaid and Medicare programs, different centers around Ohio are facing a shortages in OBGYNs, especially in the rural areas. So these birthing centers could be beneficial for people who are pregnant and seeking care. And then the third one was one that we advocated against, and it would basically be limiting mental health resources to minors without parental consent. So those were cool, very different bills, very different perspectives on them in terms of like where they were introduced, what portion of the legislature they were on, but it was still really cool.
Cool. Yeah, well, clearly you're a huge person on advocacy and you really believe in that. So, when Dr. Correa first told me about you and talked about your project that you're involved in, he was telling me how medical students, like the young generation, they just need to put themselves out there and really advocate for the change. And they could do it if they actually choose to. So, tell us more about the food project that you're working on and with Hispanics and minor catering it to their diets and that sort. Just tell us more about it.
Yeah, for sure. So when I spoke to Dr. Correa, we were trying to figure out a way to basically have an impact in the Hispanic community here in Cleveland. We were kind of hitting a dead end in terms of like free clinics that we could work with. And we were struggling with this idea of like, having a free clinic and not having, or having health screenings for patients, but not really having a clinic that they could go to without them having to take on a lot of expenses. So the next thing that we thought about was kind of this idea of food, and especially Dr. Correa being an endocrinologist and dealing with a lot of patients with diabetes and obesity. He was saying how food was really important, especially as part of our community. And I had mentioned to him as well when he was telling me this, that when I was doing a health screening, we weren't really getting a lot of patients in this Hispanic center that we were at. And so I just went up to a group of kids and I was like, I'm a med student. In what way would you like to see med students, interact with the Hispanic community? I like us med students think that we are best used as a health screening, but what do you think we could do? And I just wanted to see what they would say. And they said, well, honestly, we don't really know like what healthy cooking is like. They're like, we think we know and we try to tell our parents, but they're so stuck in their ways with how they're cooking that, they might really benefit hearing it from you guys or like hearing it from like the doctors. And I was like, wow, that's such a great idea. I agree with that. And so when I spoke to Dr. Correa, he was like, wait, that's such a great, like, we could do this in Cleveland. All we would need would be like a teaching kitchen where we could bring in, free of charge people in the community and just teach them how to make the same recipes that, they've always made, but with healthier alternatives. And Dr. Correa, I think he practiced in Arizona. He said that one of his friends in California, they had a similar idea where they had a similar course with the population there in California, and it was really, really useful. It presented like different ways of doing the same recipes. It was also culturally appropriate because when especially Hispanic patients go to the doctor and they get told to just eat healthier, that's not what they're used to cooking, or they don't really know how to change their lifestyle habits. And so Dr. Correa and I talked about, just making it easier for them using the same exact recipes they know how to make. And so they're not, you know, we're not taking away a portion of their identity with the food that they identify with the food that they enjoy. We're just teaching them different ways of how to make their life healthier with the same food, whether that be, understanding portion control, understanding portions of different sides of the meal, understanding how to make the meal, how to read nutrition labels, and anything of that sort, but kind of putting it at the root of that.
So that sounds amazing. I have multiple questions on this.
Yeah.
So how were these conversations? Were they in Spanish? Were they in English? Are you bilingual by chance?
Yes, I am bilingual.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are still in the process of getting funding. So you mean the conversations like between Dr. Correa and I, or like,
Oh, with
or
the patients, I meant.
oh, the patients. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And we can talk about the other
so
one after. Yeah.
so the ones with the kids, it was half and half when I spoke to them.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of the classes, we're still trying to get funding for that. So we're still in the process of like really getting the ground running with it. We are like building right now a proposal because at the end of the day, like we need money for it. And so we're trying to get money from his department to be able to fund the food because we do want this to be free of charge and we want to have people come to it. And one of the things that Dr. Correa and I said was like, and one of the things I told him was like, no one's going to come unless there's food. Medical students are the same way. Like none of us show up to anything unless there's food. And so if we can promise families, a free meal or something, that'd be one of the reasons why they could go. Because if you're thinking about it, if you have a family that is working maybe 12, 14 hours a day and they have to pick up their kids and then also cook on top of that, do they really have time to go to a health screening class that doesn't offer any food to them or like doesn't offer anything other than just like words to them? That's also might not be culturally appropriate. Um, but yes, so yeah, we're still trying to secure funding for it. So
Wow. How long has this process been going on for, give or take?
it's been going on for about 4 months, I would say. Everything takes a lot of time because you still have to like write a lot of the proposals and then reach out to people and then maybe get some no's or,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
wait a little bit. So yeah.
So, as a first generation student, how
Mhm.
has it been navigating the path of medicine? Because as you said, your parents aren't doctors, you didn't really have any family in medicine. How was it navigating through this? A lot of people say mentors help. So was there a mentor that stood out for you? Maybe an advisor, maybe a professor? Who was there to help guide you through this journey?
Yeah, a really great question. So I was lucky enough again to go to Hopkins where there was a lot of advisors there. Any question that I had could usually be answered and my friends as well. But I would say my first, I guess, real mentor in medicine that like when I was a sophomore in undergrad that was like showing me the way when I had no idea what to do at all, was my research mentor, Dr. Crane. She's a pediatric endocrinologist in at Hopkins, and she truly was the best mentor ever. She showed me everything that I should be doing. I did not know how to do research, how to go about applying to med schools, how to what classes to take, or really how anything should be done. And she was the one that like really just like guided me in the best way possible. She let me figure things out and like allowed me to kind of explore things, but she was a very good guiding force. She would nudge me when she needed to, or like just let me know, like, hey, maybe we should do this together. Like maybe you should come shadow these days over here. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have known to shadow. Like something so basic, maybe to some people that they're like, obviously you need to shadow. But to me, I was like, I had no idea. Or how to do research, how to conduct my own project, how to write a manuscript. She really was the one that showed me all of that, and also just how to be a doctor. Like when I shadowed her and I saw her interact with patients and how kind she was and how she would help them, that was just also something that just like really stood out to me, I would say.
Yeah, it's nice to hear about the people that help you out, and it's like it's remembering the past and
Mhm.
thanking these people as well, because
Yeah,
you're like, if it weren't for them, I don't know where I would even be. So,
a
yeah.
1000%. Yeah.
So you moved from place to place. You started out you said in Florida, then you went to Hopkins, then now you're at Case. So
Mhm.
big change of location, southeast,
Oh.
like the middle, like the East Coast, right? And then now you're like the Midwest, right? So
Yeah.
how has it been navigating through these changes, and how have you found the community at each spot you've gone to?
That's also a great question. So I would say it's definitely difficult at first. I would say when I moved from Miami to Baltimore, it was for undergrad. So, everything is new there. It's the first time everybody's away from home, and everybody starts making friends. And I was lucky enough the very first friend I made was my roommate, and she's still my best friend. And she's also from Miami, Florida. So it was great walking into the room, and both of us were like holding a bottle of bleach, like, okay, we're ready to clean now. And like, and like both our families met and it felt very homey because she was Cuban and then my family was there too. So I found a lot of community at Hopkins with Hispanics. Most of my friends were Hispanic. And then when I went to Boston, that's kind of where I struggled a bit to find my community because in your gap years, it is a bit difficult to kind of make friends during that time, I would say because you are working, unless like, specific situation, but most of the time you're working from like 8 to 5 or something. And so after that, it is kind of more like a job. And so if you don't live with your friends or you don't have them super close, it can be a bit harder to find that community. And then when I came to Case now for med school, I made my first friends through the like LMSA, the Latino Medical Student Association. Those were some of the first people that I had met and really connected with. Um, and so that was really fun. That's kind of like how I've made how I've tried to make my community. We've obviously branched out and made different friends as well. But always trying to find like I always like also try to find my community within like the Hispanics around me, and that always just makes me feel right at home. And just helps with like these transitions to like very different places that are very different from like where I grew up and also without my family here because they're all the way in Miami or like Argentina. So it that definitely does help.
LMSA, I always love hearing about LMSA.
Yeah.
It's great. Wait, by chance, are you going to the national conference in
In
September?
Houston. Yeah.
Yeah, the one in
I'm
Houston.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I'm hoping. Yeah.
I'm
We're
hoping to.
fingers crossed we have funding, but yeah, this last conference that was in Chicago, we went to it and Case had like one of the most like students go. Like all of us showed up. We were like all so excited to go. So yeah, it was great. I loved the conference last year. So hopefully we will be going again in Houston.
Do you want to talk about like a favorite experience from LMSA? Because you said at Case specifically, that's the kind of the one thing that helped you find a community there.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that helped me, one of the things that definitely helped me find a community. I would say honestly, one of my favorite memories with them was probably um Chicago because it was like right when we started. So like we all like really didn't know each other. And then we just all went on this trip to Chicago. And so then we like obviously you get like close and you make friends like after like spending like a whole weekend together in a new place. So that was really fun. And then we volunteer together. So we do like these health screenings together, and we do different projects together around either like our campus or in the community. And so that's also really fun, because we can just like all hang out together and it's like hanging out with your friends.
Cool. You're interested in endocrinology right now, right? So how is it now in medical school compared to back then when you had a mentor in endocrinology? How is it doing research now on your own?
Yeah. So I actually I'm like between endocrinology and gastroenterology. So my research right now is in gastroenterology because I really liked it after my gap year. But great question. It is different. So CASE makes you do this project over the summer. We have 12 weeks dedicated to research, and you're building a project from the ground up, basically. And it's very different, even though the project that I worked on in undergrad was also kind of from the ground up. I did have a mentor, like you said, where she really was like, okay, step by step, this is what we need to do. And she really gave me that outline. And now I don't have that outline, but I can use what she taught me to basically conduct my research now. And I guess the best example that I've had literally within like the last 2 days was building a REDCap database. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But it's basically where you store information for research. It's where you put in information, and then the reason why you do it is because one, it's like secure for like patient protected information. And then also you can export it to like Excel and basically, run all your analyses and stuff through it. So it's just a good way to have encrypted data. And with her, the Excel or the REDCap was already set up. Everything was like already ready for me to go. All I had to do was like tweak it. But she still taught me how to go back and like how to put stuff in, why she worded things certain ways, why she organized it. And then now that I have to build this project from the ground up, I have to build my own database for it, like to store my own data. And I can use what like she showed me, even though it was like 3 years ago and I don't remember everything. I still have that framework that I can work with right now to like build it up. Or when I'm writing a proposal or like writing the manuscript, she was there to show me how to do that, what language I should be using, how it should be worded, which is something that I think you always get taught maybe, or you always get shown at some point, but it's until you actually sit down and do it that like you're actually learning it. because so many times we learn like how to write an introduction, how to write a methods, but until you have to sit down and do it with a specific journal in mind, how to answer to like the reviewers and everything, you don't know that until you're actually doing it. So I would say, yeah, that's how she's helped me.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard tricks like writing to the journal because then it'll
Yes,
get
definitely.
accepted more. Yeah, yeah. That's there's so many like
Exactly.
caveats and like nuances into how to properly like technically do it. So yeah,
Yes.
it is a lot on your own. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of caveats and everything. And I didn't know any of that until she told me it. She was like, okay, if you want to apply to this journal, we got to write it like this, and then this is how we do it. And she was like, look up papers by this journal, like tell me how they wrote it. And I would have never thought about doing that. I would have just probably submitted the same paper to 1,000 different places. But she was there and she was like, this is how you do this. This is how we work through whatever the reviewer said, this is how we implement the changes that they said. This is how we answer them. So, yeah,
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you just finished your first year of medical school. How is it like looking back and where do you see yourself right now in positioning yourself for the next 3 years?
great question. I think this year, looking back, was really I had a great time. I think Case, at least for us at Case, from what I've talked to with my friends as well, they just do a really good job of fostering community. Truly, they foster a very collaborative atmosphere, big community school. So you find your friends, and even though, you may be friends with a group of people, I think everybody is so kind. And so you can always just say hi to them. And there's been many times where if I don't know somebody, or even if I know them like tangentially, I can still go up to them while we're waiting for something and spark up a conversation, and they're more than nice to me while doing that. So I would say definitely in terms of like the community aspect, very good community. I've made very great friends, so that's been great. The content's been difficult, but I think Case also does a good job of positioning you to interact, like both get the content, but also be able to apply it in real world scenarios and, have discussions with patients and have those face-to-face interactions with them where you can put what you're learning actually out there and see its effects. So for example, our last block right now, we did cardiology, renal, pulm, and pharmacology, which is, a lot of information. And at the end of it, they put us into like a clinical immersion week where basically we went into the ICU, we went in and looked at pulmonary function tests from people. And it was nice. It was a nice change of scenery between like just doing lectures. It was nice to actually see what we're learning in practice with people, to see patients on dialysis, which is like what we just learned on renal. Like it was nice to put that all face to face. So I think it really sets me up both well going into like the next 3 years, thinking about medicine not just being in a vacuum, like in a textbook, and just, every patient's going to just show up like X, Y, and Z, but more so thinking about how it actually does apply into the real world. What's the bigger picture here? What are we trying to do right now? So, yeah.
Wait, so you're talking about a lot of the later experiences in medicine, and like you said previously, you talked about how um, you discovered medicine more in undergrad, because in Hopkins it was like full of it, right? It was surrounded
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
So, did you have any previous experiences in medicine, or did you just kind of immerse yourself in undergrad?
Basically just an undergrad, I would say. Prior to that, I jumped through a lot of fields that I wanted to be when I was like in middle school and high school.
Mhm.
But it was mainly centered on like teaching and stuff. But yeah, I never really thought about medicine being like a pathway for me in high school, if I'm being quite honest. Yeah, it was never on what I expected myself to do. I'm very happy with the decision, but it was something that I'd never expected.
If it weren't for medicine, what other career choice would you have chosen? Yeah, I know you were talking about like teaching, but yep.
Yeah, I would say honestly, if it wasn't for medicine, I guess I'll answer from like the undergrad perspective.
Mhm.
If it wasn't medicine, I would do probably something with like artificial intelligence or like technology systems. My major of behavioral biology also had a like a portion to it where it was like techno ethics and like the ethics of different new systems coming out. And so I feel like when I graduated as a senior in 2023, it was like right when like artificial intelligence was like coming out. And, obviously now with ChatGPT, it's like huge. So I feel like that could be something cool that like I would have wanted to like explore if I didn't have medicine.
Okay. Well, I always like switching it up here. So, well, medicine does exist. So, argue your reason for pursuing medicine in just a couple words.
Oh, in just a couple words. So I would say my reason for pursuing medicine would be because I could advocate for people and help them.
Okay.
Truly, at the crux of it is just helping people and just having the gift because it's a gift to be able to help people and it's a privilege to be able to help people. And so I definitely see it as like a privilege to be able to help them. Yeah.
So a two-in-one question, but so far
Mhm.
you've been talking solely on positive experiences and how a lot of things have gone good for you, but I'm sure not everything has, right? So could you talk about any situations or times that you've dealt with a lot of stress or you've experienced imposter syndrome?
Yeah. I would say that's a good question. There's a lot of stress always.
Yeah.
I would say probably definitely imposter syndrome everywhere you look. Whether that be like an undergrad when I first showed up there, because everybody had all these things that they did in high school, and I was like, I did none of that. They maybe started 5,000 clubs in school, and I did none of that. And I come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know why I'm here right now. Like I don't know why they chose me. Or even now in med school where I'm like, wow, like everyone did so much in undergrad. They like basically almost cured cancer. And I'm like, how did I end up here right now? Or, just day to day when everyone knows the answer to everything and you're like, I didn't even know that was a question, or I didn't even know that was something. So definitely a lot of imposter syndrome everywhere. I would say I felt that many times.
Yeah, imposter syndrome, it really is everywhere. Like people, there's this one thing that people love to say, like you ended up in the same spot, so like you don't have any reason to feel that way. But that's it's not the end of the story with that because, like you said, people like maybe some people in undergrad, in terms of your experience, have tons of research publications. Like people I've met my age, they've been like, oh, I've been doing research since I was 14 years old. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? What? It's kind of insane, right? But like you all ended up in the same position, but it really isn't like that sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And when you get to med school, I think a bigger percentage than you think has people in their families who are professionals, and I think that does help. You
Yeah.
know, my mom and my dad didn't know anything about like medicine, about even really what it meant to be in college. Like they barely knew that I had to take the SAT. So some people that maybe have had professionals in their lives can kind of guide them or give them opportunities, which, that's great for them. And I think it's great that they took those opportunities. But obviously it's very different than like everybody else's lived experience. So just adds a little bit of nuance to how you view people there.
Yeah. Different journeys. Yeah.
Yeah, different journeys. Oh
What's one piece of advice you would give to pre-med students?
my gosh, yeah, I had so much advice actually. I
Take your time.
remember I kept writing it and I was like, actually I could like I could like say all of this. So one of them with running, honestly, the advice that I think about with that question, I actually got from running. Because when I run, I use like the Nike Run app and they have sometimes motivational speakers on there which can be like dumb sometimes, but when you're running it just feels so great. And I remember a couple of things that I've been thinking about when listening to it was like you can't eat a whole elephant unless you break it up and you eat it bite by bite.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean like obviously go and eat elephants, but it means everything that's a big feat, a big journey, you can still do it, just not just it doesn't mean you can't do it just because it's a big journey or just because it's this big endeavor. You just have to break it up to be able to do it. And then another one that I liked and that I think is really pertinent to people who are applying to med school, going to med school, is that it's not a bad thing to ask for help. It's a privilege to be able to receive help and then also to be able to give help. And all of us are going to need help at some point. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for advice. And it's okay to take time for yourself because at the end of the day, if you don't show up for yourself or if you don't fill up your own cup, you can't show up for others. And the best version of yourself is also you taking care of yourself. And so if you want to take care of others and you want to be there for others, you can't forget about yourself as well. And so that's one thing that I think people sometimes forget about when they're applying to med school or they're in med school. And it can be very easy to forget about when you're under so much stress. But I think it's still really important to hold on to.
Definitely, yeah. And like you were just saying, about like motivation and things like that. Because motivation only takes you so far, but discipline and passion really take you the long way. So you got to know your why in medicine and really
Yeah.
affirm yourself when you're in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, similar question, like adjacent to it, but what's one question you wish more pre-meds asked you about?
That was a hard one. I will say that was a really hard one that I saw on there.
Mhm.
Because I didn't really know what could be more another question. And I struggle with the answer because I don't know if I should go the route of like, like what are some coping mechanisms that you've developed during this time? So I think it's good to hear about the way people cope with their stress and the way that people deal with it. So that way, it's in your mind. I don't know if to go the route of like, oh, how do you like your med school? And like,
Yeah,
how do you
well,
like,
we
I don't know
could
about
tailor it to
that.
that question. What do you think Case Western does as a medical school compared Case Western do? Like, what's one thing that they do that you really, really like that other med schools don't do?
I would say we always complain about it, but I would say probably reflection is huge at Case.
Mhm.
And sometimes they make us do it maybe a bit too much. But I think it is important to practice reflection and reflect upon who you are as a person, the way that you show up in a group setting, the way that you show up for your studies and stuff. And they do make it a point to have you reflect on yourself basically every single week. Um, and I think that's something really special that they have you do because it gets you thinking in the mindset of, who am I right now and what are some of my goals? And it does make you a bit more goal oriented to who you want to be. They don't see things as being a limitation on yourself. They just see it as being like a room for improvement. And so when you start framing your thoughts that way, it just helps when you're trying to figure out who you want to be as a person. And it goes beyond just being, okay, well, I know all these mechanisms for everything. It's not about knowing all the mechanisms. It's about who you are as a person, how you show up for people. And that's how you're going to show up for your patients in the future. And we're not all going to be perfect. But we can all get feedback. We can all give feedback, take feedback, and use it to improve ourselves and in the end, improve our patients' lives as well.
So I'm gonna ask a lot of like really, really quick questions right now. So
Sounds good.
what's one thing you're proud of right now? It's a loaded question. I get it.
It is a loaded question. Honestly, I'm proud that I finished the first year of med school. Like I'm proud I finished it. And that's done. Despite like, every life happening. I think first year of med school, adjusting and getting into a routine of things and learning so much can be really difficult. And so I'm proud I was able to finish it. And then my non-serious answer is that I'm proud that I can run 7 miles now. So that's my non-serious one.
Good for you. Congratulations. Are you still considering academic medicine because you said you wanted to teach in the past, so would that be a route that you're interested in?
That could be. I am considering it. I think it just depends on how life plays out.
Mhm.
But I think I am considering it because I do like the aspect of research, the way that, especially if you do clinical research, you can apply to your patient population.
Yeah.
So I do like that. I like mentoring people. I like talking to people and just teaching them the ways and everything. So I think I'm considering it so far. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. All right. And what kind of physician do you hope to be for your patients?
Such a great question. Okay. I would hope that I am a physician who makes my patients feel seen, heard, and respected. I would say somebody who shows them grace, who shows them patience, and who they feel that they can really rely on and feel that they have like in their corner advocating for them.
Yeah, good. And medicine is known in particularly for passing down knowledge. Who do you hope to give back to in particular?
I was gonna say anybody behind like behind me. I would say anybody that comes after me. Whether that be like pre-meds, volunteering in the community with like the children, like the students in school and everything like that. Um, it's not, I don't even see it as being like, oh, they need to go into medicine and they like, I'm trying to make them go, but more so just like broadening their horizons and just letting them know, anything is possible and being exposed to all these fields is great. And you can choose, your own adventure and choose your own life. Um, so yeah, probably anybody sounds weird saying anybody behind me, but like anybody that comes after me. So yeah.
It's good to take control like of your life, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you figure out which opportunities to say yes to? Like how do you in terms of like time management, things like that, how do you also find time for your hobbies as well?
That's a great question. That's something that I'm still learning, I would say. I'm learning how to say no to things. I've never been very good at saying no, when it comes to opportunities, because I always think everything is always a teaching moment. And it's always has a positive outcome, I think. But I would say I try to limit though my opportunities in terms of, like you said, time, especially now, is like pretty a precious commodity.
Yeah.
You not maybe not in the summer right now, but during school and everything, the time that you spend doing one thing means that you can't dedicate it to another. So I do try to limit how often I say yes, or maybe saying yes with like maybe caveats and saying, I can't maybe commit myself to this entire project, but maybe just a little bit. And help in that way. And then to make time for my hobbies, honestly, I look at like, for example, working out or like running as being kind of just part of my routine. It's not something that like I add into my schedule, but it's something that's already there. So
Non-negotiable.
that a non-negotiable, yeah. And that's kind of the way that I've thought about it. Because the moment that I start thinking about it as being like negotiable and something that I'm adding in, then that's when it starts being taken out. And so I put it in as like, no, this is a non-negotiable. Like it's going to happen. And if I need to move stuff around for it, I will.
So you're Argentinian. What is one cultural dish that is your favorite? If you just have to pick one.
El asado. Literally just like steak. We're known for our steaks and just like the whole community part of it too is that like when you're making like a barbecue, un asado, like you're cooking steak with your family and I really like it. That with like some French fries and I would say maybe not the most healthiest meal in this world, but I still really like it.
What is something Argentinians do in particular that you love about your culture that you know other cultures don't do?
Oh, I have an answer to this, but other cultures do this. But maybe I'll just say it.
It's
It's drinking mate. Like I definitely drink mate. It's
the tea.
yeah, yerba mate. It's a yerba mate, and it's something that just culturally just like brings you together. Because you're sharing a drink and it's meant to be passed around the community. And weirdly enough, even though a lot of other cultures don't do it, the ones that do though, it is like a good meeting point. Like for example, one of my friends in med school now, he's from Uruguay, or his family's from Uruguay, and him and I will be the two like bringing mate to like our like student center and stuff, or like when one of us has it like the other one always like shares it. So it's always like just a great way of like bringing people together, and so that's one of the things that I love about our culture.
Right. Yeah. If someone were to ask you to pick one sticker to represent yourself, what would you pick?
I did see that question. That was so funny. So I would say a mate sticker, even though like I just answered mate. I would say like a mate sticker with like, and it's also because I have a tattoo of it. So it's
Oh,
also why I picked it. Um, but I think it just does represent beautifully like community collaboration and just like doing things together and having a community that who has your back that you can sit down with and share a meal with, share mate with, and come together really. So I just really like how what that represents and like what that's represented for my family when we get together and we drink mate and like the moments that I grew up thinking about it brings me a lot of nostalgia and just yeah.
if someone were listening to this and they didn't listen to a single word you said, what is one thing you want them to remember Emily by?
I would say it'd be it's okay to ask for help. Always what I say. It's okay to ask for help and it's okay to need help. And it's also a privilege to be able to give help to other people. And so never forget to ask for help.
Never forget. Yep. This is AP Med. My name is Andrew Poveda, and we just finished interviewing Emely Loscalzo.